I find that I'm a person who can take on the guises of different people that I meet. I can switch accents in seconds of meeting somebody, and I can adopt their accent. I've always found that I collect. I'm a collector. And I've always just seemed to collect personalities, ideas. I have a hodgepodge philosophy, which really is very minimal.
When you study the remarkable career that is David Bowie's oeuvre, an interesting pattern emerges. Over the years, he created many albums or stations that are set firmly in one genre of music. However, as he evolved, certain albums would contain multiple influences, indicative of his movement from one genre of music towards another, as he traveled from station to station. This evolution and cross-pollination of genres is best represented in his work from 1974 through 1976, which was dominated by his infatuation with American soul music and bookended by his exit from glam rock and his entrance into the experimental art rock that he created during his Berlin years. Join me as we look at Diamond Dogs, Young Americans, and Station to Station to discover the music that Bowie called his plastic soul. In 1972, during the American leg of his Ziggy Stardust World Tour, Bowie met a woman named Ava Cherry while in New York. Cherry was a singer, and at that time a member of Stevie Wonder's entourage. Bowie and Cherry then began a romance which would last until directly before Bowie's move to Berlin. In 1973, as Bowie was losing interest in the glam rock scene, he began to produce an album of soul music for a three-piece vocal group that he created, which was headed by Cherry and called the Astronets. Once he began work on what would become Diamond Dogs, he abandoned the Astronet album. However, several elements of that project would eventually find their way to Bowie's 1980 album, Scary Monsters. The title of the Astronet song People from Bad Homes became a line in the song Fashion, while I Am a Laser was reworked into Scream Like a Baby. Diamond Dogs, released in May of 1974, was a transitional album for Bowie, the last to use the Ziggy Stardust imagery, and the last to contain the glam rock that had made him an international superstar.
Rebel, rebel, torn your dress. Rebel, rebel, your face is a mess. Rebel, rebel, how could they know? Hot tramp, I love you so.
Amongst classic-sounding Bowie songs like Rebel, Rebel, and Diamond Dogs were others like Rock and Roll With Me and the Isaac Hayes-influenced 1984, both of which leaned heavily into the soul music that Bowie was moving towards.
Some days they won't let you, but now you must agree. The times they are a-changing, and the changing isn't free. You've read it in your tea leaves, tracks are on TV. Beware the savage jaw of 1984.
In June of 1974, Bowie embarked on his North American Diamond Dogs tour, a massive theatrical production which contained drastically reworked versions of songs, props, choreography, and, as the centerpiece, the Hunger City set, which took 3 semi-trucks to transport, 30 men to erect, and cost the modern equivalent of over $2 million to construct. In August, the tour broke for 1 month, allowing Bowie time to travel to Philadelphia and begin the process of recording his next album. When Bowie told Ava Cherry of his desire to record an album of soul music, she backed him entirely and suggested that they travel to Harlem's renowned Apollo Theater to find musicians for the project. Carlos Alomar, then the house guitarist at the Apollo, was hired by Bowie and brought with him drummer Dennis Davis, bassist Amir Kassan, and his close friend, a then unknown Luther Vandross. The group assembled at Sigma Sound Studios in Philadelphia and began work crafting Bowie's rough ideas into legitimate soul music. During the sessions, Luther Vandross began to emerge as a man of particular importance, as he helped Bowie arrange all of the vocals for the project and contributed his song Funky Music, which he and Bowie reworked into the song Fascination.
Time, giving it, keeping it
Right, that's cool, that's cool. Next one, got to do it this way to get it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Get to when you're down.
Nobody do it, get it up.
Sometime. Okay, that's good. Right, okay, and last section.
Give me,
Yeah, give me.
doing it.
Taking you with me.
Sometimes.
Loving it,
Right.
doing it right.
All right, we're on 3.
They pulled in just behind the fridge. He laid it down. He frowned.
Also during these sessions, the group conducted an interesting experiment. They took one of Bowie's more obscure glam rock songs, the non-album single John, I'm Only Dancing, and turned it into a funk-driven dance song.
I'm only dancing. She turns me on. But I'm only dancing. I'm only dancing. She turns me on. I'm only dancing. She turns me on. Yes, it makes it. Don't get me wrong. I'm only dancing. Oh, yeah. I'm only
When Bowie returned to the Diamond Dogs tour in October of '74, he brought his Sigma group with him, dropped the Hunger City set, all of the theatrics, and dubbed the new performance the Soul Tour. During this leg, he debuted the song that would become the title track of his next album.
Sit on your hands and the bus is survivors. Rushing along, that blue shears. Ain't that close to love? Ain't that close to love? Ain't no more be told. My heart's been broken just like you, yeah. All night you want the young America. Young America, young America. You want the young America. So that can make me break down and cry. What the young America. Young America. Young America. All night. I want the young America. I want what you want. You want what I want.
You know, somewhere someone is writing a learned paper in a university called something like Jagger and Bowie, Prophets of a Pluralistic Society, and you know this, Prophets of Doom or something. Do you read this stuff? And you see critics write very elaborate intellectual analyses of your work and other people's. Does this put you to sleep?
The bad ones. I always read the good ones.
Yeah. Do you want to be understood? You know what I mean? Ziggy Stardust
Absolutely
was
nothing to understand. I mean,
was concerned with famine in the world and so on, and prophecies of the world running out of food and stuff like that.
I'm a storyteller and a story writer, and I decided that I preferred to enact a lot of the material I was writing rather than perform it as myself. At this moment, I'm performing as myself, but I will continue in the future, after I've done what I wish to do at the moment, return back to writing stories, and I will enact them again, and I don't care what anybody says. I like doing it, and it's what I shall continue to do. It's not, and nothing that I do is on any kind of intellectual slant.
You got no mission.
No, it's just... Oh.
When the tour ended in December, Bowie holed up in New York City as he delayed the release of the Sigma recordings and attempted to get out of his management contract with Main Man. It was during this period that he met John Lennon. Shortly thereafter, the two found themselves jamming in a studio, accompanied by Carlos Alomar.
Bowie was around and we were talking and that, and he'd say, come down, and I found myself doing that. So he's fiddling around, he writes them in the studio. Now he goes in about 4 words and a few guys and starts laying down this stuff. And he has virtually nothing, he's making it up in the studio.
During the Sigma sessions, the group had worked on a cover of the song Foot Stompin' by the Flares. Ultimately unhappy with the product, Bowie did, however, like the guitar lick Alomar had created for the song.
He didn't like that song, so David Bowie cut it up into little bits by using little segments of it and then taking the segments and putting them in different order. And in doing that, he was able to get a regular kind of blues orchestration out of it by altering the arrangement. You know, you grab a little piece, move it around, etc., etc. I mean, they do that now by just grabbing, boom, grang, goom, and like, if we knew how to do that then, we would have been.
On the day Bowie, Lennon, and Alomar were recording, Bowie told Alomar to start playing the foot stompin' lick. Lennon then began to improvise the word aim over top the riff. Bowie stopped the proceedings, quickly wrote a new batch of lyrics with Lennon's help, and aim became fame.
Hey, make some man shake things over. Hey, let some loose, some hard to swallow. Hey, put you where the things are hollow. Your brain is just the flame, burns the change, it keeps you insane.
So I just contributed whatever I contributed, you know, like backwards piano and a couple of things like repeat of fame, and then we needed a middle 8, so we took some Stevie Wonder middle 8 and did it backwards, you know, and we made a record out of it, right? So he got his first #1, so I felt that was like a karmic thing, you know. With me and Elton, I got my first #1, so I passed it on to Bowie and he got his, and I like that track, you know. I must say I admire him, vast repertoire of talent the guy has.
When I asked him what he thought of what I was doing, glam rock, he said, yeah, it's great, but it's just rock and roll with lipstick on. And I was impressed as I was at virtually everything he said. He was probably one of the brightest, quickest-witted, earnestly socialist men I've ever met in my life. Socialist in true definition, not in a fabricated political sense, but a real humanist. And a really spiteful sense of humor, which of course, being English, I adored. I just thought we'd be buddies forever and get on better and better and all that, you know. Fantasy. I know the Beatle that I always liked. Because everybody had their favourite Beatle. I never really realised that. Well, I did realise that, always knew that. But one wouldn't have declared it in the early 70s because that would have been most uncool to actually say that you actually liked the Beatles in any way, shape or form. But they made such a great impact on. They gave the British the illusion that they meant something again. You know, and we love hearing that. Oh boy, do we love hearing that.
Suddenly, Bowie is back, but it's Bowie like never before.
She was a young American, all the way from Washington. Her breadwinner begs off the bathroom floor. We lived for just these 20 years. Do we have to die for the 50 more?
Released in March of '75, Young Americans went gold and gave Bowie his first U.S. #1 single, Fame. In July, he traveled to New Mexico to film his role in The Man Who Fell to Earth. The character of Thomas Jerome Newton, an extraterrestrial who loses himself in the material excesses of humanity, consumed Bowie. After, he returned to the Hollywood Hills home he had been renting and began to subsist on a diet of milk, peppers, and cocaine. He lost himself in the study of the occult and would go upwards of 5 days without sleep, waiting for the deprivation of rest to bring him hallucinatory visions. Isolated and alone, paranoia began to take hold.
We're not stopped. Is there anything behind us? Let know. There's an underlying unease here, definitely. You can feel it in every avenue. It's very calm, and it's a kind of a superficial calmness that they've developed to underplay the fact that that there's a lot of high pressure here, as it's a very big entertainment industry area. And you get this feeling of unease with everybody. The first time that it really came home to me, what a kind of strange fascination it has, is that I came in on the train, on the earthquake, and the earthquake was actually taking place when the train came in. And the hotel that we were in was just tremored every few minutes. I mean, it was just a revolting feeling.
In September, he reconvened with Alomar and Davis at Cherokee Studios in Los Angeles. Joining them were Diamond Dogs touring guitarist Earl Slick and bassist George Murray. Alomar, Davis, and Murray would form the core of Bowie's band for the next 5 albums, with Alomar continuing to play with Bowie for decades after. These sessions, fueled by cocaine, would result in the album Station to Station, one of Bowie's masterpieces. Unfortunately, Bowie was so lost in the grip of addiction that he later stated he had next to no memory of these sessions. Though he was again moving in a new direction musically, the soul influence was still there, with Golden Years and Stay being 2 of the standout tracks.
Golden Years, we started with, first of all, he comes in and he bangs on the piano and he goes, you know, something like that kind of, and I'm going like, yeah. And he's going, David, have you ever heard of this song? They say the neon lights are bright on. He goes, no, I don't. Well, dude, you can't play that. That sounds just like another song. And so I said, okay, don't worry about it. We'll just change. Just keep. What's the? And he goes, da 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 da. So. Basically, when he comes in, they're very, very, very simple chords.
Yeah, he already had started writing the song, but then we needed to get guitar parts that were working for the song, and I have a vague memory of, I know I came up with that riff for it, and
ended up being. And then I would put. And then this part. I was like, dude, that's way too folky. It's like a folk music song, Peter, Paul, and Mary. So it ended up being.
opening doors and pulling some strings. Angel, come. Didn't walk luck and you looked in time. Never looked back, walk tall, act fine. I'll stick with you, baby, for 1,000 years. Nothing's gonna touch you in these golden
years. Stay was, it was basically a funky groove first. It was more like... Now, he had an idea from before, and I think that it came from a song called John, I'm Only Dancing.
And David wanted a new opening riff to just change the flavor of the song. And the riff I came up with is what I'm about to play, which ended up, sooner or later, it just turned into Stay. It turned into an entirely new song. But, and it goes something like...
That 9 chord was, I had to do the 9 chord, and the 9 chord is James Brown. If anybody knows anything about music, the 9th chord belongs to James Brown. Okay, rock and roll is not about a 9th chord. Okay, it's so funny when I had to show Earl Slick the 9th chord. It's like, no, it's this funky, and I had to show him how to be funky.
Passed by so slowly, the days fell on the knees. Maybe I'll take something to help me. Won't someone take after me? There's always some change in the weather. This time I know we could get it together. If you would stay here tonight, that would be crazy tonight. Stay. That's what I meant to say, or do something. What I never say is stay this time. I really meant to so bad. The hair's time. 'Cause you can never really tell when somebody wants something you want to.
I've used this method only on a couple of actual songs. What I've used it for more than anything else is igniting anything that might be in my imagination. I mean, you can often come up with very interesting attitudes to look into. I tried doing it with diaries and things, and I was finding out amazing things about me and what I'd done and where I was going. And a lot of the things that I'd done, it seemed that it would predict things about the future or tell me a lot about the past. It's really quite an astonishing thing. I suppose it's a very Western tarot. I don't know. Let's see what happens.
The album's title track gave birth to two things: the experimental, synthesized art rock that he would focus on for his next 3 albums, as well as his newest character, the Thin White Duke.
Return of the thin white duke, throwing darts in lovers' eyes. Here am I. What magical movement touches the stuff from where dreams are woven? Bending sound, dredging the ocean, lost in my circle.
In February of '76, Bowie and the band embarked on a 65-date world tour. This tour is noted for a number of interviews that Bowie gave in character as the Thin White Duke. Consumed by his cocaine addiction and lost in the narcissistic immoral character, Bowie made several pro-fascist statements to the press, which would haunt him for several years. Once the tour ended, Bowie knew that he had to get clean. He left Los Angeles, and after bouncing around Europe for a time, settled in West Berlin, where he would kick his addiction to cocaine and begin the next phase of his career. Though his music would contain elements of funk and soul for the remainder of his life, they would never again be as evident as they had been from 1974 to 1976. Always in a state of constant evolution, Bowie's career would go on to contain experiments with genres as diverse as industrial metal, dance pop, and acid jazz. Admirably, Bowie would always champion African American music and art forms, even at the height of his fame in the mid-1980s.
I'm just floored by the fact that there's so few black artists featured on it. Why is that?
I think that we're trying to move in that direction. We want to play artists that seem to be doing music that fits into what we want to play for MTV. The company is thinking in terms of narrow casting.
That's evident. It's evident in the fact that the only few black artists that one does see are on about 2:30 in the morning or to around 6. Very few are featured predominantly during the day. Because one sees a lot there's one black station on television that I keep picking up. I'm not sure which station it's on. But there seem to be a lot of black artists making very good videos that I'm surprised aren't used on MTV.
Well, of course, also we have to try and do what we think not only New York and Los Angeles will appreciate, but also Poughkeepsie or Midwest. Pick some town in the Midwest that will be scared to death by Prince, which we're playing, or a string of other black faces.
That's
and black
very
music.
Interesting. Isn't that interesting?
It's
well, I'll tell you what it means. I'll tell you what maybe the Isley Brothers or Marvin Gaye means to a black 17-year-old. And surely he's part of America as well.
No question. And that's why you're seeing those things.
Do you not find that it's a frightening predicament to be in?
Yeah, but less so here than in radio.
And is it not, well, no, don't say, well, it's not me, it's them. Is it not possible that it should be a conviction of the station and of other radio stations, to be fair? It does seem to be rampant through American media. Should it not be a challenge to try and make the media far more integrated in music, especially of anything in musical terms?